All right. Well, Brian, Andrew, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So, this is an exciting time to be sitting down with you guys. We're talking about multifamily repositions and even leveraging technology to create that value for multifamily investors. And, with recent supply levels at their peak levels, you see developers building Class A buildings across the country in markets that are emerging and also markets that are urban areas. And you're seeing those pro formas and those promises made to investors. And what ends up happening is you have the renters that are experiencing higher levels of rent for those newer buildings because construction costs are rising. Labor for developing these buildings are tighter than ever. And it just, to meet those pro formas, those rents have to have high rents. So this brings our point back to the value of that multifamily reposition and how to create that value for the investor, because an investor can really create some interesting returns and some wonderful returns by repositioning a B property, move it up a class level, and still get that $150, $200 rent increase, but still be under that market rent for that Class A building, doing some great things for their investors. So tell me, Brian, what's exciting today about multifamily repositions?
The thing for us that's fun is it's like the Joneses trying to keep up with the Joneses, right? The new guys are moving in. We gotta do a little facelift on the buildings from exterior to interior. A lot of us are starting off with redoing the clubhouses, kind of dressing up the face of the buildings, and then we'll go in and we'll kind of value engineer the internal sides of it, such as going from a Formica countertop to like a quartz countertop. Painting the cabinets, putting on new cab faces. Giving that facelift so we can so we can compete with the guy next door.
Right.
These new buildings, they're putting a lot of money into them. Their rents are getting pretty high. And so we need to keep up with that. We might not be as high as the new building, but we're definitely keeping up with them. We're within that price point where we need to be in the areas that we're doing the facelifts.
Right. Yep. And so on your group, you guys help with really understanding that total project management, because how do you know what to improve? I mean, are you guiding them in that process?
100%. We have a lot of companies will go out and buy, and they bring in a designer or something like that.
Right.
And then we kind of go out and take a market analysis of who's doing what by walking other properties, seeing what's going on, seeing what's the new fad in that area. I mean, what's in Seattle might not be good for Scottsdale, right? Mm-hmm. It's just a different demographic of people and what they're looking for. So when we got started here in Scottsdale about 2.5 years ago, it was different for me because I do so much in Seattle. So coming here, the look was different, the colors were different, the design was different. So it was a lot of learning for me. So I sat down with some designers, and then, as we all know, designers, they have deep pockets, they think, but we don't. So we got to value engineer everything that they want. So they want a gooseneck faucet.
Right.
Well, we got to find one that's kind of like what they want, but within a price point where we can still make the money back.
Yeah, the property makes sense. Mm-hmm. And so tell me about the teams, though, because multifamily operators today, just in the maintenance of properties, are having a tough time retaining and recruiting and developing leaders on the maintenance side of the business. That marketplace in itself is tight. What are you guys doing differently to bring better teams to these repositions?
We kind of hire with the guys we hire. We're looking to be a part of a team, not as an employee. They're coming here. They're with growth that we're doing. They've got areas to move up in this company, and we're not it's our way or the highway. It's let's talk about it. Let's figure out what makes the most sense. If our way's not working right, let's try it your way, or let's test it out a little bit, see where it's at. So they have some ownership in what we're doing. We do that with basically everything from laborers all the way up to upper management. Why is this working better over here than it is on this property compared to here? And we might even switch them or send them over to help train.
Right.
So, retention's hard. We know that. It's construction. I mean, it's hard for everybody. Anything that we're doing right now, retaining anybody in any section is hard. But for us, I think because we give them ownership, because we give them the leadership side of it, and there's no I'm above you or you're above me. I mean, everything is kind of a group effort. We discuss it with each other, and I think that's what makes us a little bit better.
Right.
These guys take a lot more pride in what they're doing. I mean, we're doing occupied turns. We did 1,300 of them in 5.5 months.
Right.
You do that as a team. You don't do that because people are butting heads.
Right.
You don't do 12 units a day if you don't get along.
Right. So how exactly are you getting units done in 10, 12, 13, 15 days on a reposition like this?
We manage all of it. We only have a few subs. Our scheduling is...
Do you see people that are trying to do this approach and they're taking a different approach, not being as effective? They're subbing out one element of it, but they want to save on the other, and ultimately it costs them more? Or tell me about
I'd make an observation here, and that is that we do run a very tight schedule. It's an electronic schedule, and with our team in the unit the entire time, from the time we are handed the keys to the time we hand it back, we're allowed to control everything. Whereas some other general contractors don't necessarily take this very focused approach to unit turns, which is something that we have honed and are very good at.
So understanding the investor mindset, time value of money, urgency, time is money. And so tell me about the technology. You mentioned electronic and scheduling. Tell me how this works to get these projects.
So it's really quite straightforward. We've just built electronic calendars, and once you populate the start date, it populates automatically all the additional fields, taking into consideration holidays, weekends, and so forth, and the number of people who are on that team. So it is updated twice a week, goes out to the subs, our staff, as well as the management company, so they know exactly at what point that unit's going to be turned back to them and what point it's at any time in the process.
Mm-hmm. And we do a lot of bulk buys. We don't rely on supply chains per se. So we might buy a little bit from here, buy a little bit from over there, buy 5 pallets of faucets from over here to make sure that we have those in our grasp. It's in our control. We're not worried about a delivery chain showing up or not showing up, or they missed the delivery, or a kit shows up and it's missing 4 things. Mm-hmm. I mean, our guys walk in one day, they demo. They walk in the next day, they might put trim in. We don't touch it for 4 more days because subs are in there between paint, carpet, and so on and so forth. Right. Then we walk back in with our kits, throw it all in there, and we're done, and we're ready to punch.
Yeah.
So ours, it's a streamline effect. It's, I started off in a company called Pickering way back in the day, and it was designing cowl closets and cabinetry.
Okay.
Everything was assembly line. It went from a banding machine, from a router to a banding machine to a pallet to shrink wrapping it. So that's kind of the way that we've designed it. It's an assembly line.
Sure.
And that's since we've held with that, it's worked out quite well, and I think that's what's brought us a lot of our success.
Tell me about this kit. Is that an actual kit?
It's an actual kit.
Or you just...
It has everything you need for that unit that goes in that unit, and it's all the way down to if it's 4 door handles, 6 locks, 5 stoppers. That's what's in there. It's labeled, it's coded, and it shows up, and it's ready to go.
Right. Okay. So you're doing a lot of thinking in advance about this project. You're talking about the project management software and the technology to drive timelines and meet deadlines and make those promises. That's how you're getting to the 15-day turns.
And we're walking in there. I mean, we see a schedule. We know that they're coming up 2-3 months from now, or whatever. It could be 2 months. It could be 20 days from now, right? Somebody turns in, they're moving out. They're going to throw it on our list. We're going to put it up on our schedule that far in advance. So we're talking 20, 25 days before we even get the unit. We're already ordering. We've got everything. We've pre-watched. We've measured. We've got everything. So when we start, it's go time. So you don't have the properties down a month and a half, 2 months. I mean, they already know they're taking it down for a month, and we're going to lose a month's worth of rent. We know that. That's given. But a lot of these guys are running into 35, 40 days. Now we're out 2 months worth of rent.
Right.
So not only what we're giving back, we're also value engineering a bunch of the products. So they're saving money on the rehab. They're only down half the amount of time.
Right.
And life is good.
So tell me about those early conversations with those operating partners. I mean, when you're buying a multifamily reposition value add opportunity, you know already going in what the strategy is. You see the opportunity, you think you can increase the rents if we do these improvements. So how early do you get involved in that process?
We're there on the due diligence side, so we kind of walk in and give what it's going to cost to do the rehabs, or do the roofs, or do the windows, do the exterior. And then they start making their decision whether that's on their side, whether, okay, we have the money to go in and do this. It's
right. So you're helping them become smarter acquisitions, make smarter acquisitions in the process. I'm sure you're helping them say no to some deals too, right?
Yeah. It's like, can we get by with 5 years without having to redo the roof? Can we only do 3 things to the rehabs rather than a full rehab, such as carpet, paint, and everything else? Can we just do faucets, appliances, and some lighting, will that get us through for the next 3 to 5 years and we can get the bump that we need, right?
Right.
Or does it need a full renovation, or can we do 50-50? So we do a lot of, we help them out with a lot of that. Where can we spend the money for the biggest bang for the buck?
Right. And so what do you think is keeping them up at night, the multifamily executive, in this process?
Right now,
Product.
It's so busy right now that if you're not pre-buying and if you're not looking 6 to 8 months ahead of what product is, you're not going to have it. And it's, such as, say the tariffs on the new solid services coming out of China, right? So people are outsourcing, looking at other ways to get it, but now shipping becomes a factor because it costs more to get it from other countries. So product, I think, is becoming a challenge for all. And so what we do is we buy, if we know that a job is 280 units and it's going to cost, take us 300 slabs, we're going to buy that outright. We're going to have it. We're going to have it on hand, so we'll be able to use it, and we won't run out of product.
Yeah. Tell me about your company and your culture and what you're creating, because it sounds like, I love the analogy of the manufacturing, right? The line, because I look at it like, what are the raw materials that are needed to go into this business to make it go well, right? And then what has to happen, during that process, and what's at the end of the day, what's the outcome? What's it going to be like when we're all through this process? And I would assume there's a lot of moving parts, adjustments, the ability to be agile in the process. And I'm just making a comparison because I've probably repositioned 4,500 units myself, not myself, but as with the team. And we did this in 13 states. And what we did is we didn't have a group like yours at the time. We were comfortable with a team, GC that did it on our current assets, and we ended up just saying, look, I need you in Indianapolis, I need you in Ohio, I need you in North Carolina, only because for me, the relationship I had was valuable to know that reporting is going to be the same, expectations were going to be the same, they understood the timelines, and then there was that negotiation on buy. Are you doing similar strategies for groups?
Pretty much. We're not here, and we won't fit every single company, right? We're here, we got our handful, 5-6 companies that we work with. They're doing the same thing. How's California? Can you come to the Bay? Can you go to Colorado? Where we just started in Sacramento here 3 weeks ago. So realistically, it's the relationship that we've built with them. It's they trusted us. They know it's going to run the same way. They want us to be there, and if we can make that work, and like Arizona, we stepped in. We had one project, and that was 2.5 years ago, and now we're on 11 projects, or starting our 11th project this next month, and it'll be 248 occupied turns.
Right.
So, it's trust. It's the friendships you build and the trust that you have with those companies. I think it keeps us moving forward.
Sure.
And we learn with them.
How important is that? Because you said something very important, which I have a high level of respect for those that can say no to business. It's, are you going to be in a situation where you can truly help that client? And sometimes you have to say no. What should an executive do when they're evaluating a company like yours? Because there are companies that will say yes, right? And then all of a sudden they've overextended themselves. How do you keep them from going into situations like that? What are those questions that they need to be asking groups?
Typically, we'll start out with a project. If they have a GC in there that's not quite working out, they'll give us 1 or 2 units, and we'll show them the quality of our work and the speed with which we do things. And at that point, then they realize, this is obviously a team that does just this and does it very well.
Mm-hmm.
And we're also not a company that, we're a turnkey company. We don't you don't take pieces and little bits and pieces. Hey, can you guys just paint and do countertops?
Right.
That's an epic fail.
And why is that? Because you want to create the outcome.
We need control.
Right.
The only way we can create the outcome and know that we're going to finish on time is if we take it over from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So I get that some people have certain GCs or certain subs they want to use. Say they have flooring sub. We're okay with that, but we're going to schedule it. It's going to run through our books, and we're going to maintain it and make sure that they're covering. And if they don't, we're going to have somebody fill in for them to make sure that we don't miss our timelines.
Right.
We're a company that doesn't give excuses.
Is there a premium for that turnkey process, or is it? Because as an asset manager or an owner, I'm looking at it like, you're gonna there's the price you pay, and then there's what it's going to cost you, right?
Yeah, for
and
sure.
so I'm going to do this ourselves because it seems like we can save X, but it's going to mess up because we're not going to be on it with the technology. We're not going to be buying right with the products. We're not going to be managing right. It's not our only thing we're doing because we're doing other things and we're reacting to other things.
Yep.
So I bring in a group like you. Is there really a premium for this?
When we go to bid against other GCs. So our feet are held to the flame. I mean, if they say you guys are X 100% high, we go back to the books and see what we can change and modify to get into that range. So we don't get to charge a lofty price. We're still in there with everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And ours is in quantity. We want to turn as many units a month as we can with the quality that we are putting forward.
Sure.
So, I mean, yeah, it's a tough business. A lot of people say they can do it. A lot of people can sort of do it.
Sure.
And I think that we found some ways. I mean, we have a lot of great people in this company, and everybody has a strong point. Mine's construction. Andrew's is more with the engineering and the, all the, what would you call it?
Computerization.
All the
innovations.
The innovations that we're doing, right? I'm a guy that swings a hammer and hits a nail, I mean,
well, but there's more to that. I mean, that drives the experience, because if the residence unit is not working or it's not up to standard, then that's going to impact the experience the resident has, which leads to more pressure on internal teams, but ultimately drives outcomes for companies. So as an executive, you might be thinking, well, I've got capable people doing these things in my organization, but the reality is this is the key thing that drives that rent, the premium on that rent. And so tell me more a little bit about your approach, because you seem to have a pretty effective approach. Are you meeting differently with people? Are they reading books? Are they inspired? Like, what is the leadership that's driving the efficiency in this outcome?
Well, one of the things we do is a little bit differently is we don't necessarily hire from the traditional pool of construction staff members.
Well, you got my attention now.
We have gone out and interviewed people in other areas, in different fields, nothing to do with construction, but super detail-oriented, super organized, very outgoing, very friendly, great communicators. And we can teach them about the unit turns and the construction. And we have quality construction people doing the construction component. But that management team is from a completely different pool, very untraditional in the world of construction.
Wow, that's powerful. I don't know, because you're right. I mean, we continue to say we have problem finding people, but we haven't really innovated the approach to really finding people. I use the professional sports analogy all the time. It's like you don't apply. I mean, you first have to win where you are somewhere else. Someone like you, Andrew, shows up and it's like, wow, this person really thinks right. I love how their attitude is, or they have the values that we can build on. Mm-hmm. And you find a spot, you structure something for somebody like that, and then you teach them. I mean, you
Absolutely.
can teach this process.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The process.
What's that training and onboarding look like when give me an example of how you've brought somebody in from outside, built them up, and gave them the skills and the future.
We've got a PM coming on board right now, as a matter of fact, in about 2 weeks. And he will go through the training process, and we called it the University of Bob, who is one of our lead superintendents. He's a wonderful gentleman, very knowledgeable in construction. So he will work with him literally in a unit for 1 to 2 weeks. And then he'll go spend another week with another project manager who has their own set of skills that is unique to them, and so on until he's moved through at least 4 or 5 of our top people. And so after a month to 6 weeks of this, he'll understand the way which we do things.
And we have a structure, so everybody knows that the schedule runs this way, and this is how we alter it. And we have one gal that does all the scheduling for us. So all the guys do their updates. That goes to her, so we know for a fact that it's going out to every vendor, every client, every manager, every employee, so they know exactly what's going on every single day, and somebody can't say, oh, well, I didn't have a schedule, or I didn't know we were doing that today. I mean, everybody's on point with the same exact schedule. Nothing changes. Mm-hmm. So if there's a red flag, there's a hole in the floor, something changes, that automatically goes on a schedule. It gets updated, and we send it out. So when we're training new people coming in, communication's king in this industry. If everybody knows what's going on, you can't fail. Something comes up, we know how to fix it, and we come with solutions, not with problems. So that's how we train everybody that comes into this company.
Right.
Don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to run into a problem. It's a problem.
Right.
But just excel and come with a solution, not the problem. We know what the problem is.
Right. It's
So-
in innovation and technology, because I know you guys are deeply invested in this. You have web servers and reports that essentially report error codes constantly. I mean, if you go into a web server and you look at the back files that you don't see, there's error codes. It's just this happened at this point and whatever, and they can fix those. And so oftentimes when you're dealing in construction and you're dealing with development and even any management, people are trained to hide errors, right? Like, I don't want to get in trouble because I might lose my job or I might not get the account and those kinds of things. And so it's interesting that you have this sort of structure to your business, because even average people with that structure will outperform people that are excellent without the structure.
Absolutely. We look at trending analysis of people, like they hear some of these terms in construction, like it sounds like you're working at a hospital. It's like, no, we trend this and we look at why this is happening. And if it's a recurring event, well, then we huddle up and we find out what do we need to do to fix this. And you make the observation, yeah, people don't want to say this is screwed up or I screwed up. But when you report these mistakes, you're going to have much more success. So we tell our people, you're not going to get in trouble. Just come to us and tell us. We'll get a solution and it'll be better for everybody. So we don't have this people hiding mistakes or sweeping things under the rug.
Yep.
Right. And that's because you can't see that as an executive, because until it's too late, or it's 18 months later and there's a problem, something wasn't set right.
Exactly.
And then how do you fix that? It costs more to fix it then than doing it right.
And we pay to fix it.
So how do you train? How do you train? Is it they're meeting with the leaders of the organization? They're held to a higher accountability, or again going back to the values?
Lead
by example. We're the first ones out there to say when we made a mistake, we own it. We get up right in front of the room and tell people we were wrong about that, and just convince them that's the right way to be. And again, we're really meticulous about interviewing processes when we talk to people before we make a decision to bring you on board. Are we right 100% of the time?
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, totally.
Of course.
No. So, in our industry, moving as fast as we do and starting a project that might take 2.5 years to complete, right? There's a lot of things that are going to change in that. Product stops coming. It's discontinued, things along those lines. We're not a company that goes, oh man, what are we going to do? We bring it right to the table. Here's 3 options of the next faucet. What are we going to do? Who wants, these are your options. This is what we've got. A lot of people, I think, try to hide it, or they're trying to find an extra 2 or 3 faucets here. Or, I'm just using faucets as one deal here, but it happens all the time. We don't have time to go search for 1 or 2 faucets. We're going to say, here's the next options. We've got enough to finish out the complex with this. What do you guys want to do? And we put that back on, say, your plate, if we're doing your complex, right?
Sure.
You got to tell me what to use. I'm just here to put it in.
Right.
There's no more of this, but we got tons of these.
Right.
What do we want to work with? So everybody's on board all the time. And that's how we teach our guys. When we walk in, we don't sugarcoat. We don't try to tiptoe around anything. We just bring it out. And, I think all of our guys have been pretty receptive, and our guys have taken that on. They don't hide much.
Mm-hmm. So bringing an organization like yours on, and getting the 3 bids, 4 bids, 5 bids, whatever they go through in that due diligence of who will handle this reposition for us, are these things coming up in your conversations with the companies, or should these be the questions an executive asks a firm like yours? Or because it seems like a lot of people are asking about the product and the spec and maybe the price per unit and are those the wrong questions?
Well, they got to start there, because they need to know what they're going to be spending and looking at their budget. And what we try to, when we get the chance to talk with the project managers and the owners of the building, we then tell our story about what it is that we do and how we do it differently. And so that's just a value add to them. Then when they make their decision, they can look at the different price points and make that, do I want a general contractor that's going to be in there for 30 to 45 days? Or do I want these guys who specialize in unit turns and multifamily?
Yeah. Did you start out with the 15-day unit turns, or did you just eventually over time get better at it?
We honed it. It wasn't perfect at first.
We got thrown to the sharks when we got here by one of a great.
You need to do this in 15 days.
It was I need to get this done because these are 2 model units, and it was at the Catherine, and we rolled in, and I'm like, okay, so most of this was just over the phone and some floor plans. And then we showed up and we found out that one of the units had been burned out, like the kitchen had a kitchen fire. And we had to have them back in 15 days so they could walk these, right? And we were doing everything we could. And we pulled it off for our first 2 units here in Arizona. We were still done in...
We may have worked a little bit on the weekend.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
But we're still calling it 12 days.
But you developed a process, right?
Yeah,
like you
it
backed
happened.
into that.
Yeah.
Now you're like, wow, we did this. It's like breaking that 4-minute mile, right?
Yeah,
Once
exactly.
you do it.
Exactly.
And Brian
else.
has been doing it in Seattle for, almost 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, it's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Oh, they're easy, just a little face.
So tell me what happens. You walk on a property, you get that you get the project, you're meeting the on-site teams, they hand you that paper map, right? Mm-hmm. What do you do? Where do you go from there?
The first thing you do when you're walking around Arizona and it's 120 degrees out with a paper map and someone walks you about 200 yards one direction and then realizes they're holding the map upside down and it's 120, as I just mentioned.
Oh, you mean you can't hit that little blue thing and it doesn't like redirect?
It does now. So the necessity is the mother of invention. We took a look at this problem and said, you know what? There's got to be a better way. We looked at our phone and said Google Maps, right? You just type in a unit number, but that takes you to the front office every time. Doesn't take you to the unit.
Right.
So we said, we got to go to the next level. We took all of our site maps, we digitized them, and then we had some software engineers that I used to work with in Seattle who are working with us now create a program, a mobile program called MapAp. And all it does, it's that simple. You simply are on a property, you type in the unit number, and you get a green line that takes you from where you are right to that front door. And the blue dot, as you just mentioned, continues to update whether you're walking or driving and takes you the path right to the door. You never have to turn it upside down.
I love how you came up with this. I mean, the fact you mentioned necessity, it was hot, 115 degrees, and like, I am not walking all the way across a 600 unit property to get to the deal. And you came up with this product. I'm really excited about this product because if you think about what Google did with our roads, and you think about real estate acquisition, I mean, imagine if you owned the digital real estate across every highway in the world even, right? So that's tremendously powerful just from an acquisition of value, right? And then Uber comes along. All the different technologies we use today are possible because somebody innovated that process. And they kind of quietly did it. They did it, nobody knew what the intention was until later. You're now really realizing like every application ties into that some way, if it's directions or something that allows businesses to get notified. So I'm really excited about the potential beyond what you guys are doing. I mean, you're using this to be more efficient with your own business.
Yep.
Like it's a use case for you. But I think there's a compelling story there about where this goes in multifamily and beyond, because this is taking some wonderful application with, deliveries, life safety stuff.
Yep.
I mean, imagine a fire truck comes into the property and there's a fire alarm, and I mean, they have all these drawings, right, at the city, and you map these, and now the fire department can get right to the unit instead of looking at that faded board at the entry point that's maybe not updated or what have you, and figuring out there's a light out on the building ID and how do you get there. So I mean, this is huge.
Absolutely.
Where do you see this going?
You nailed it. First responders is a great opportunity. Uber drivers, Uber Eats, anybody who has to get from that front office to that front door. Delivery systems, or they move away from the package room to the front door. Amazon drivers, on-track drivers. It's almost endless. People who will be able to utilize this, and it's available at the Apple Store and at the Android Store. And we're looking at probably a model of just a very small subscription monthly fee when we do release.
We brought in last year at our summit a speaker that talked about self-tours. In other words, they were in the single-family space. They had, at a necessity, they had 1,300 move-ins a month. And this was in single-family, so you're trying to coordinate with leasing agents and getting into properties, and it was inefficient. So they had to, out of necessity, develop technology that allowed them to do self-guided tours and access codes to where you can just drive by, hit an access code. I think we were talking about that here. It's like, I can't see the unit when you're looking at a house. It's like you should be able to just hit an app and get an access code, and they know who you are and view the property. But 1,300 move-ins a month doing this technology. I mean, even with MapApp, there's some tie-in to something like that where self-guided tour, they learn about the rental online somewhere. They're given an app somehow tying into property management software. All these things are unknown at this point, but with that technology, it makes it possible to get right to the unit. And if there's smart home technology there, you now are improving the leasing experience.
Absolutely. We've spoken with management companies on this very topic, and they are very excited about this plan that you could literally come on, hit the demo unit button, go right to the door, access it through MapApp. We'll open the unlocked door. The leasing unit knows who you are. You've already filled in your information. They know that you're there. They know the time of day you're there. And they know you've walked, and they can send you back a text and say, "What'd you think? How'd you like it? Do you want to come by the office?" Think of all the time that frees up for leasing agents.
Yeah, you guys are going to have a great time at the summit this year because this conversation is continuing. And there's a lot of people that are looking at how do you manage the apartment of the future, smart home technology, what we do in the home, but not just from an amenity standpoint, but really the business case for things like this that can create value. Here we are talking about your technology allowing more value add in repositions, and so those of you that are listening in or tuning in, you'll have an opportunity to spend time up close with Brian and Andrew here at the summit. But I'll tell you that this is something I'm really excited about. I'm really going to follow what you guys are doing with it. So what's next?
Well, it's all about scalability now. So the first thing we're doing is we're mapping the entire valley, the Phoenix Valley, from Chandler up to North Scottsdale. We're probably about 50% of the way through because, as you can imagine, the value is in the data. And once that's completed, that'll serve as a sample and a demo for we can show other people how well we've done this. And then the question of scalability. We've already built this such that it'll work anywhere in the world. You just send me a map of a property with an address, and we can digitize it and put the routes in. We actually do that offshore, but that's established. And one of our lead software engineers is just there this week right now, finalizing some training. So that's going very well.
And you guys are moving quick, too.
As quick as possible.
Yeah.
Yep.
As fast as we can get the maps.
And the next thing we're working on is automation. So some of this data does actually exist in some pools, but it's all different formats and it's all different layouts. But if we can get bots to source some city maps or something that exists, we'll start to automate it. And then the program will continue to update complexes all over the United States first, just as it finds them. And it'll just be working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's
interesting how the Phoenix Valley marketplace is leading a lot of the early innovations. I mean, you're seeing those just from a community, a lot of even the autonomous driving vehicle platform out here. But gentleman that spoke, who was head of research for the autonomous driving research, last year spoke at our summit, and he was also on the podcast talking about the future of really just how Uber interacts with our buildings, the future of the autonomous driving vehicles, how we value properties, what that looks like for parking. And he's now leading up a team where there's a company here in the Valley, and we should link you up, is they're developing vehicles that are no passengers, that are just doing delivery of like groceries and these types of things, some products and services. I could imagine an integration. I mean, when I look up the Google Maps, it's like, am I on the subway? Am I on the bus? Am I driving? Am I on a bike? Am I walking? And it's like, now I'm at my property, click, one more step. And this is something Google doesn't have access to, and you guys are here solving it.
That's correct. Yeah. So you think about that autonomous delivery vehicle, once it gets to the address, it doesn't know anymore. It just drops the box out there on the step. That doesn't work. And now if it got to the property, it says, I know it's apartment 1122. It continues on to the front door.
Right. And that's sort of anything that has sort of a frustration in the consumer experience it's at risk right now for disruption. And you think about that, meet me down, you got to wait for the driver, you're tracking them. Now the delivery driver can get out and go right to where they need to go.
Exactly.
Yeah, that creates some real interesting marketing advantages for the leasing teams to tell that story. It's like, look, our properties are MapApped.
It's a smart property.
Smart property, and
it allows the property managers too to be able to do what they're supposed to do every day, rather than accepting packages, telling people how to get to another unit, explaining which direction to go, and handing out paper maps. I mean, we'd like to get it to the point to where we even have like a touch screen at the front door, so if somebody comes up, they can just punch in the unit, and it'll send them a text message to MapApp. They pop it up, MapApp will pop up, and all of a sudden have the direction how to get to that unit. So leasing managers and personnel there they're not having to take their time out of their day to talk to delivery drivers or Uber guys or anybody walking up to that office now. So a lot of the time, even we'll walk into offices and we'll have to wait because they're meeting with somebody. So now, if FedEx is waiting or Amazon's waiting, they get frustrated, they just leave, and your package has to come the next day.
Right.
They don't have to wait for anybody anymore.
Right.
It's just done. You roll in, you know exactly where you're going. And once they're all on it, I mean, it's going to increase their timelines. I mean, some of these companies are running what? They get paid by package that they deliver.
Mm-hmm.
So if they can cut 30% of their travel time out a day.
Right. This is that last mile, right? I mean, have you guys named the last step, or
exactly. That's
you know what I mean?
The last step.
Because the mile is you're driving it, but now it's the last step. You're solving for the last step.
Yep.
You know, that's interesting. So what can we do to support you in that? I mean, it's obviously you're coming to the summit. You're going to be involved there. How can a company really understand how to work with you on getting their property mapped?
Oh, absolutely. We're just looking forward to meeting people and networking and letting them explaining the value proposition and letting them, get excited about it like you have, and then find out what their properties are. And chances are, if they have any in the valley, we may have already mapped them.
Mm.
And they can always send in their maps as well. So maybe if they come in, if we haven't digitized them already, we will.
Yeah.
We'll get them up.
That's great.
Yep. It's all about the data right now.
Yep.
Yeah. So you're on the technology side, it seems like.
Pretty
You're
much.
operating the business on the renovations. Are there any final thoughts you guys want to leave our listeners with?
Well, if you need an apartment renovated or you want to find a unit on a property, call us.
Exactly.
Very good. Well, gentlemen, it was great to have you on the show. If you have any other thoughts, or leave a note in the comments. We're going to have a complete profile on them coming up for the Leadership Summit, and we'll look forward to seeing you guys at the summit.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Patrick.
All right. Take care.
Appreciate it.